What's going on, Clarence? Cornmeal. Let's do it. D-man alright. Whoa. D-man alright. Spicy mafia. Spicy mafia. You gotta keep it spicy. If you see a queen, you better wife it. While we lit up in the lighter, it makes things much brighter.
All right, so we are very lucky to have on the CoinSpice podcast a follow-up to a previous podcast with regard to the Missing Cryptoqueen, which has turned into an international, worldwide English language podcast phenomenon on the OneCoin, I guess also a phenomenon, and Dr. Ruja Ignatova. But in any case, we have with us now, I think is a heroic figure in that story, and it's Timothy Curry, Tim Tayshun, and he and I met a couple of years back, kind of randomly. I was working for another cryptocurrency outlet, and we were at Comic-Con in San Diego at the Omni Hotel, and we were looking for people to interview, and Tim was like this fantastic interview. He'd been all over the world. He even brought props to the interview. He these dollars, these Zimbabwean dollars, or excuse me, Venezuelan dollars, and he was a fantastic interview. I don't know if you remember any of this, but in any case, Tim, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, let's start off with, I guess, sort of the basics. You're a Bitcoiner, right? Like you're not a skeptic. You're not anti-cryptocurrency by any stretch. You're actually involved in cryptocurrency, and that's one of the ways that you make your living, right?
Yeah, totally. I got into crypto back quite a ways back, actually, in March of 2013, and just found it fascinating. I kind of followed the Ron Paul movement and things, was into like auditing the Fed, and one of my friends introduced me to it on February 28th of 2013, and it took me about 2 weeks before I actually started really looking into it. Actually, before I looked into it at all, my buddy's like, "Look, have you checked it out?" And I'm all, no. Gave me an Andreas Antonopoulos video, and like for the next 3 days, that's all I listened to.
That'll do it. He will do it.
Yeah,
he has taken many people down a rabbit hole, and so what I'm trying to establish here is that you're not a critic necessarily. You've drunk the Kool-Aid, man. Like you're like me. You believe this might be a transformative technology, that it carries with all this potential. So around that same time, maybe a year later after you discover it, there are different projects based on, I guess we'd say, an iteration of the Bitcoin idea popping up. Instinctively, what do you think about them, whether they're Ethereums or Litecoins or whatever else? Do you have any, like, do you instantly not like them, or how do you feel about projects other than, say, BTC?
Sure, good question. Yeah, so I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist nor a minimalist, I guess. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think Bitcoin is superior to most projects for what it does, but there are certainly some interesting utility tokens and other projects and whatnot out there that I follow. Yeah, I'm a crypto enthusiast.
Yeah, and that definitely comes across. And so you're not out there necessarily banging on other projects because you think they're necessarily evil by definition because they're not BTC, but you're also someone who has some experience, and you sort of know what a cryptocurrency is, sort of how it's supposed to act and behave relative to the space. And something about the phenomenon of OneCoin, which I was shocked to learn a lot of guys in the cryptocurrency space have actually never heard of until the Missing Cryptoqueen podcast came out. But how do you come about it? How do you find OneCoin?
My first crypto conference was in in January of 2015, North American Bitcoin Conference, I flew from California to Florida to attend it. And I was really excited. I didn't know what to expect. And one of the really interesting speakers who was going to be there was this Josh Garza guy, right? Now, Paycoin had promised its investors that it was going to have a $20 floor minimum, so when it was released onto the exchange, it was going to be worth $20 because at least $20 because the company was gonna ensure that. And they'd done, all this stuff to kind of prop it up. And they had a lot of rhetoric about how, they were teaming up with Visa and, we're going to be implementing payment systems with, Walmart and stuff like this, right? And a lot of it was unbelievable, but it was pretty outlandish. And so I just found that super fascinating. And a couple months after that, which was March 28th of 2015 to be precise, I got a message on Facebook from someone by the name of Jason Richard Mangan, who I'd never really heard of before or anything, but he messaged me. He's all, hey, I noticed that you're into crypto. You really got to hear about this new cryptocurrency. It's remarkable. It's going to change the world. I'm all, cool. Yeah, I'm happy to hear about it. Right on. So he sends me a link to OneCoin.eu. And OneCoin had existed at this point in time only for about maybe 6 months. They kind of started in September of 2014. And so, it's about 6 months later. And so I go to the website and he's kind of coaching me, I guess, through it. It was an unsolicited, message through Facebook Messenger. Mm-hmm. And so, I check it out. And the first thing I noticed was the spelling and the grammar errors. It looked like the site was designed by someone from junior high school or something like this. It was pretty bad. But even more so than that, someone who's in the crypto community, there's a certain lexicon that we use, and that when we're telling a story or talking about crypto or this, that, or the other, that was completely missing from the site. So the three things that I noticed immediately was that the website itself, which was, talking about this new and revolutionary cryptocurrency that would change the world and provide borderless payments, which basically sounded like like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The spelling and the grammar was terrible. The website was just not enough. And at the bottom, it said, hey, if you want to, join this thing or whatever, we accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and whatever other, payment things they did. But there was nothing about Bitcoin or Litecoin or even Dogecoin or anything like this. And I'm like, wait, so this is a cryptocurrency company that doesn't accept crypto. Right. And so that was immediately a red flag. So I told this Jason guy, I'm like, hey man, this isn't a crypto, bro. This is a scam. He's all, no. He was really offended. And so he's all, no. You got to check this out. This lady, she's a doctor. She's got a double PhD. She has a 200 IQ or something ridiculous like that. And I'm like, kind of rolling my eyes. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever, dude. But he's like, you got to check out this video. It explains the mining, right? I'm all right. So at the time I wasn't, I was absorbing as much information as I could. It was kind of my first step down the second rabbit hole. I had only in the recent months gone to my first crypto meetup. Anything I learned pretty much the first year was just from mainstream media. I didn't even know that there was a crypto media. And so I had just kind of gotten into that, and it opened up all these new channels for me and stuff like this. So I'm just like absorbing as much information as I can. And so I listened to this YouTube video where this woman is on stage and she's talking about cryptocurrency, and she uses words like mining and like blockchain and things like this, but that was not what she was talking about or describing at all. And to make the long story short, it was super clear that this woman really didn't even know what she was talking about, and yet she's on stage selling it. So at that point I said, yeah, bro, no, this is definitely a scam.
And it's so you get into Bitcoin, then kind of find some alternative coins or so-called altcoins like Paycoin, and then that leads to someone soliciting you about OneCoin, and all the bells are now going off in your head that this is not legit. Now, I think at this point, most of us, myself included, just being the lazy guy that I am, would really just leave it at that. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe on a Reddit forum or some sort of chat room. If I was asked about it, I would just say it's probably a scam, and leave it at that. But that doesn't happen with you. This this becomes something of a crusade, right?
Yes, but not initially. So I reacted just like you described how you would react. However, over the next maybe 2 or 3 months, I started seeing more impressions of this OneCoin and this Ruja Ignatova, Dr. Ruja, showing up in Facebook groups and things like this. And, people are talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, that's a scam, bro, whatever. But then they say that, they're launching in the USA, right? And this is going to be in June of 2015. And I come to notice that one of these, launch events is in Downey, California, about 20 minutes south of Los Angeles and about an hour from where I live. So I'm like, you know what? It would be really interesting just to go there and kind of check it out. So I did. So I planned to go up there and check it out. And I wasn't planning on writing about it or recording it, although that all kind of crossed my mind, but I had never written a story online or anything like that. And so I was just like really curious because it was, it's kind of a fascinating psychology. And so I went to this event, and there was it was in a, I don't know, maybe like a church kind of office like area. Maybe there was 70 people there, and there was like a little stage at the front, nothing extravagant. It was very MLM-ish, and they were, the two guys that were running it were named Sal Leto, Leto, and Maurice Katz. And these guys are up on stage. They're talking about how much money they're making. They're talking about how you'll be able to send OneCoin anywhere in the world for under 99 cents, just like Bitcoin. And at the time, Bitcoin, as far as any fees for the network, it was like tipping the network. It was just a courtesy. And it was like 3 to 7 cents to send Bitcoin.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't really know what he's talking about. But these people are getting pumped up, and they all of a sudden they bring this guy on. He's a big bodybuilder guy, right? He's from something called the Power Team. And a funny story about this is this guy, gets on stage and pumps people up, and he breaks wooden boards and smashes bricks. And he's, up on stage, and he's talking about having this financial breakthrough and, getting involved in something that's so important and, and all this sort of thing. And they're using a lot of the same kind of taglines that, that Andreas would use, quite frankly, bank the unbanked and things like this. And, Bitcoin went from, nothing to all this money, and the pizza guy and all this, all the stories that we're used to hearing that made headlines. And
they're catching that zeitgeist. They're following the wave. This is classic MLM behavior.
Totally. So this guy's up on stage breaking and screaming, and he's like at a 13 on a volume level of 1 to 10, right? And it's more almost annoying than anything else. But what's funny is, like, I had remembered this guy. I was like, dude, I know this guy from somewhere. And I actually grew up as a pastor's kid, right? So I went to church and this kind of thing. And this guy was part of a team that would travel around called the Power Team, and they would go to churches and they would pump up the audience and, for people to have some sort of breakthrough or another. I mean, I had remembered him specifically from when I was a kid. And so it was just kind of weird to see this dude at this, cryptocurrency meetup kind of recruitment thingy, right? And I'm just observing people in the room and their reactions to how this guy is describing OneCoin and stuff. And it was really surreal. And at one point, they had a little awards ceremony where people who had recently completed some education, courses for OneCoin were on stage. And maybe there was, I don't know, 10 people or something like this, but the last couple that was on stage had just completed their 5th education package, which was a 5,000 euro course, whatever that's translated to in US dollars. I don't know, 5,200, 5,300 bucks. So they had spent this money for this education that was supposedly about cryptocurrency. This guy's name was Kevin Foster. He and his wife were up there. They had taken this course together. They had become kind of leaders in OneCoin in the US at the time, and meaning that they had recruited and had a downline beneath them. And during the break, the intermission kind of at the middle, I went outside and I wanted to chat with him, and he seemed like a friendly guy. He was kind of a big dude, about my age, maybe younger, beard, glasses. So I'm all, hey man, so, congratulations or whatever on your certificate. So what exactly have you learned about cryptocurrency? And that was kind of how I opened the conversation. And what he was saying was just it was very unremarkable. And so I asked him about mining, and he's like, well, that's the beautiful thing about OneCoin. All you got to do is just push a button and just click, and the coins are mined for you. I'm all, well, do you actually understand how mining works? And he didn't. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy has gone through 5 classes, right? 5 courses, supposedly, from this OneCoin thing, right? The first one's like 500 euros, or the first one's 100 euros. The second one's, I think, 500 euros. The third one's 1,000 euros. And then I think the 5th level was this 5,000 euro package, which is called the Tayshun package. It was the largest investment you could make in OneCoin at the time. And it was just clear that no one there knew anything about cryptocurrency. So I left, and I was like, damn, that was strange, And there was some guys in there that you could tell were just real slimy, like, used car salesman, promoter looking types. And
but at the time, so this has gotten you enough. So this went from an online Facebook message now to where you're actually traveling to a conference. So are you at any point intrigued? Like, do you think this is going to go anywhere, or now you just fully convinced that this is just complete garbage?
Oh yeah, just read. It's funny. It's every interaction I've ever had with OneCoin since the very beginning has just reinstilled, and re-solidified how much of a scam it is, right? And so, I was never interested in it, other than like, okay, how are people falling for it at this point? And even then, even after that, I kind of was like, oh, well, that was interesting. I think maybe I, posted some comments on Behind MLM, which has over 200, maybe 250 different blogs covering the history of OneCoin and a ton of different multi-level marketing and crypto MLM scams, since the beginning. And it wasn't until maybe 3 months later that I would kind of just see stuff pop up and, kind of browse it and go, hey, that's a scam, bro, kind of thing. But about 3 months later, all of a sudden, there was just a big new wave of advertisement, promotion, marketing, people talking about it, this whole buzz about this OneCoin thing. I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, I early on, I didn't think that this thing could possibly last, 6 months. It was just, it was super obvious. I told a friend, it's like if you were a doctor and you were at a doctor's convention, and this doctor or supposed doctor goes up on stage and starts talking about his patient and says that they removed his gizzard. You're like, wait, humans don't have gizzards. And so there was just those things that you or I would immediately be able to pick out and just almost laugh about, right? But this Dr. Ruja comes out, and now she has this supposed cover on Forbes magazine. I'm like, wait a minute. And so this is popping up in all these groups. I'm, getting solicited. I'm seeing it, on Facebook. I'm seeing it on social media that, the OneCoin founder, Dr. Ruja, is now featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. And I'm like,
this is even after the conference you attended, Downey, huh?
Yeah, this is like 3 months after the conference, about 6 months after I had first been solicited, OneCoin or whatever, and within 3 minutes told the dude it was a scam. And at this point, I'm like,
starting to blow up. It's just starting to take off.
Yeah, it's totally starting to catch momentum, right? And so I'm like, these guys are ruthless. They will pour money. I don't know how this Forbes thing happened or whatever, but they're sure pushing it. And a few days later, we found out that Forbes does have a marketing arm called Brand Voice, or did have a marketing arm called Brand Voice, in which you could buy the second page ad of the magazine. And what OneCoin did is basically ripped off the cover and showed the second page, right? And it makes it look, kind of legitimate.
Yeah.
I'm like, these guys will spare no expense in order to steal and rob from people selling a shitcoin, which I suspected at the time, but wasn't sure, wasn't even a cryptocurrency, which we would later find out it wasn't. So that was kind of the turning point. The Forbes fake magazine cover was kind of the turning point where I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a pay coin all over. There's already a lot of people starting to fall for it, and it's going to be trouble. There was 3 things specifically that over the next few months I began to realize were going to be a result of this if it got much bigger. And what those things are, in this order, is that it's going to cause regulatory problems for the cryptocurrency industry if this thing gets and ends up stealing a lot of money. It's going to raise the barrier of entry, to the guys that are tinkering around in their garage, like Wozniak and the Apple guys were back in the day. It's going to require significantly more capital investment for companies to get off the ground, meaning that they're going to give up ownership in their creation and things like this. So that was the first thing. That's something I didn't want to see in a new and nascent technology space. The second thing was, of course, public perception. So when I would talk about this ridiculous scam, OneCoin, in the crypto community, people just hadn't heard of it. And they're like, really? That's crazy. How are they getting away with this? But when I would talk to friends that weren't involved in crypto, I would say, yeah, this OneCoin scam. And they would repeat that and say, yeah, well, I heard a lot of things about Bitcoin being a scam and stuff like this. And so there was an immediate, people jumped to the conclusion that I was talking about Bitcoin, even though I'd said OneCoin, because it was just so unfamiliar, cryptocurrency in general,
to most people. Kind of conflate it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm all, okay, so this is going to have a really negative impact on cryptocurrency in general, on Bitcoin, etc. And so that was reason enough for, to speak out against it and try to do anything that I could to, raise awareness against investing in this scam. The third thing is really the human factor, and that's that anyone who puts money into this is not going to be taking any money out. I mean, the only way to make money in OneCoin, and really in a lot of similar, in any Ponzi scheme, is to recruit. And obviously the older investors are only paid out from the money that the new investors are putting in. So those are the main 3 reasons. And over the course of the next few years, bringing up to date here, I thought, what, especially in 2016, so that was the end of 2015. By 2016, things really started going. And, between 2014 and the end of 2016, at that point, which I didn't know until much later, in fact, closer to the end of this year, OneCoin had already brought in $4.6 billion. This is 8 times greater than Mount Gox. And I had said even back then, I go, you know what, if this thing keeps going, it's going to be bigger than Mount Gox. And so in March of 2016, I wrote an email to Ruja Ignatova and said, hey, I'm going to write a story about OneCoin, and I'm going to tell everybody that, you know, that this is a scam. I'm going to get it published in a big, you know, crypto publication, and I'm calling you out. And if you want to defend yourself, please feel free to do so. I would love to interview you, blah, blah, blah. So I got a response from, I believe it was Irena Delkinska, who at the time was OneCoin's head of legal and compliance, which I call illegal and non-compliance, of course. And it said that, you know, if I wanted to interview her, that I would have to fly to Bulgaria and Sofia, and that still the interview couldn't be guaranteed because Ruja is very busy. She's traveling the world and she has all kinds of meetings and stuff like this. And I'm like, okay, well, at this point I had really been shouting down some of these, you know, people that were promoting it and, you know, posting links showing that bank accounts had been closed or frozen or seized that were involving OneCoin, that governments had begun to warn about it, that a few countries had even begun some criminal investigations in late 2015, early 2016 regarding it. So, you know, law enforcement was only just barely starting to catch up as this thing was just exploding exponentially. So, I was like, okay, well, I'm not really going to travel to Bulgaria. I don't think I would look good in a Bulgarian necktie. So, and I asked, I'm like, you know, this is like the internet age. I mean, I don't understand why we can't just do an interview like you and I are doing right now. So that just didn't make sense. I later found out that she did interview once with a crypto media source, a group out of Estonia called Estonian Trader. And they had kind of a Bitcoin foundation and had some, you know, computer scientists and programmers and that were working with them. And they ran a media source, and they had actually sent Ruja 7 or 8 questions asking about the proof of work, asking about how this was a centralized cryptocurrency as opposed to decentralized, and how the company itself held the members' private keys, and they really had no access to this. So all of these, you know, little facets were kind of compounding, and it just became more and more clear that you know, okay, this is not only a shitcoin, it's just not a cryptocurrency at all. The users don't have access to their funds. So yeah, that's you know, that's where it was at that point.
And so you're so far down the rabbit hole that you have all this time invested. You know, in your personal life and in your, I guess, your personal vocation, you're doing Bitcoin stuff as well, and seeing that as a legitimate alternative to fiat systems and so forth. And here is OneCoin, seemingly, as you say, with those 3 points, muddying the waters, to put it mildly, and really starting to take hold. And it truly became an international phenomenon, right? So this thing goes to Africa, this goes to South America, all over Europe, and as you said, the United States. So this is no small project. We're by this point into billions of dollars. There is no cryptocurrency to speak of. It's more or less a Ponzi scheme, an MLM. And so you're reaching out, you're just finding all these different I guess data points or nexus points that you know, definitely steer you in a certain direction. And how is it then that you become linked with someone in real life? Like, how do you find I believe the ladies in Scotland, in the UK, Jen McAdam. How do you find her and really begin trying to make a flesh and blood difference in this.
Yes.
In OneCoin.
So right now we kind of left off in around March of 2016, and I met Jen at the end of 2016. So let me kind of catch you up to date to bridge that gap and what took place between that time, which was significant and which would make an even bigger difference and importance in the whole story. So, by March of 2016, I had begun rattling cages, right? Because I'm like, I hate these scammers. These scammers are just destroying the name of cryptocurrency, and all these people are falling for it, and they're obviously falling for it. And so there was a Canadian dude named Ken Levine, and he would do almost daily podcasts, extolling OneCoin, how awesome it was, how, they were going to, as soon as 3/4 of the 2.1 billion coins were mined, they were going to suddenly have 50,000 merchants, like just out of there. As soon as we hit this number, there's going to be 50,000 merchants, because that's what all of the top leaders were saying. And so he was just, parroting what he was hearing from the network, from the top. And so he and I ended up getting involved in some podcasts together where I was, saying, look, dude, this isn't a crypto, because I figured, what the easiest way to expose this is to take advantage of some media and challenge people directly. And so that's what I did with Levine. And so he would argue that it was a cryptocurrency, and I would explain exactly how it wasn't. And I would, discuss the contradictions that the company was publishing, or that the leaders or Ruja were saying. And I would be like, well, what about this? And what about this? And that's not how cryptocurrency works. That's not how blockchain works, etc. And so his fan base really began hating me. And, so I became called a hater, and was accused of being a paid hater, which, these are terms that are just taken directly out of the Ponzi playbook. If you don't like what the company is doing, and you're trying to share facts that show that everything they're saying contradicts reality, reason, logic, etc., then you're just a hater or a paid hater. Ken had these terms called a PPP or a PCP. And a PPP was a pictureless profile prick. And he would say, oh, you're just a pictureless profile prick, because people that weren't using their real picture on social media or whatever were a PPP. And then bloggers were the other enemy, right? The bloggers got paid to write these stories, because OneCoin was so big that they could, write a story about anything about OneCoin, and it would just get a lot of reads. And so the advertisers were paid for it. So they were called PCPs, which was penny chasing parasites. And people were told that, don't read any of those blogs, because every time that you read one of those blogs, the guy who wrote the blog gets a penny. And stuff like this. And this is how they dissuaded people from learning anything about the truth. And so what happened next?
But to their credit, at least the Canadian guy, he at least had you on.
Yeah, for sure. And at first it was a very, very friendly, exchange of information. I'm someone with a crypto background. He's someone without a crypto background that believes in this, grand vision of Ruja Ignatova, and that, banking the unbanked, which was a complete contradiction based on the fact that even to pull out money from OneCoin's back office, which they had something called a cash account, because when you would recruit people, you would get a 10% commission, although 40% of that was in, 4% of the total was in OneCoins, and 6% was in cash. And so if you brought in, $100 package deal, then you get $4 in OneCoin, and you get $6 in real money. That shows up as a number in your back office, which people would later figure out is just a number on a screen in your back office. But so in March of that year, Ken had been talking about how, and all the leaders, I'm just using his as an example, about how, there's going to be these 50,000 merchants and all this, stuff's going to happen because, I think it was a third or 2/3 or whatever it was of these coins were mined. And all of a sudden the date comes and nothing happens. It's just complete silence from the company, et cetera. And this was at the end of March, maybe middle of April. And next thing you know, you're seeing stuff online about this big event at Wembley Arena called Coin Rush. And so Coin Rush was, going to be just the conference event to end all conference events. And, there was stuff traveling around that, Bill Gates was into OneCoin now, and they would use quotes, misquote him and talk about how Richard Branson is, now a supporter of OneCoin because they had pictures of him showing that okay sign, right? With his fingers, right? Saying, hey, okay, which so happened to be
yeah.
OneCoin's like hold sign. So they use that to say, yeah, Richard Branson's behind this now. They had messages going out that, Alibaba was going to be accepting OneCoin. And so all this hype and lies and propaganda that's leading up to this big Wembley event. So they pack out Wembley Arena. There's 10,000 people there. This is sick, right? This is a major event. There's freaking fireworks just exploding on stage inside, massive sound system, massive light show. It's crazy. It's totally like a rock concert, right? And there's all these people who've invested in OneCoin there, right? And so they it's like, I don't know how many hour-long event, but anyways, Ruja gets up on stage and says, hey, everybody, sorry for not, actually, she didn't say sorry for anything. But my point being is that she says, listen, we've done such a good job growing the network. We now have like 2 million members, right? And we've come to the conclusion that there just isn't enough coins, right? So this 2.1 billion supposed supply divisible to the 8th decimal point, like Bitcoin, sorry, isn't enough coins. She says, we need more coins for Africa. We need more coins for India. And we need more coins for merchants. And I'm like, okay, the Africa, the India thing, I don't really get, but we need more coins for merchants. Are they planning on subsidizing merchants? Because the way that I see it working is that if a merchant has a good product or service, it's the people that have cash or coins or whatever that solicit that merchant. That's how they get coins. You don't just open a lemonade stand and all of a sudden, the government hands you a bunch of money. You don't just do that in cryptocurrency and get free money. So that didn't make any sense. So what she says is that we're going to move to a bigger and a stronger blockchain. And this chain is going to have 120 billion coins. And the people in the audience start clapping, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, and she's saying that this is going to be better for adoption. So imagine you have 100,000 OneCoins, right? And all of a sudden, instead of a 2.1 billion cap, the cap is now going to go to 120 billion. So from logic, you're hyperinflating the supply while the demand is staying somewhat steady, which is going to make you lose value in your asset by about 96.5%. So what she says is she's all, but you know what, since you're all here now and this, that, I'm going to double everyone's coins. And oh my God, the place is in just a complete roar of joy. So you take the supply, you increase it by 5,700%, and then she doubles the coins that everyone's holding, which no one apparently got the logic that, hey, if you're going to do that, you kind of need to 57 times our coins, right? So that was that event. Fast forward, I start, contacting these scammers on LinkedIn. I'm calling them, one out of 10 maybe is like, oh wow, you presented some decent information. I really got to look into this. Whereas 8 out of 10 are like, no, I don't believe you, just a hater, a Bitcoiner, a blogger, blah blah blah, whatever. And 1 out of 10 is like, F you, I don't care, I'm making money. In other words, they knew it was a scam. And so when I was contacting the top leaders, some of them were like, I don't care, I'm making money. And that was a little infuriating, because these are people that are more or less admitting that they're scamming people. And so during this journey and crusade, there was other people too, by the way. I was inspired by someone named Ben Smith, Zmith, who had done some YouTube videos, exposing the scam early on. And there was others too. There were people that had followed it, from day one, and they were like an inspiration to me. I'm all, yeah, these guys are going and getting them, putting on the punch bags and slapping them around. This is good stuff, right? I was like cheering them on. I was like, well, I can do that too, And so it was more like kind of a fun little hobby. I sometimes describe it as like almost like a choose your own adventure book, right? Where you get to actually influence the story. And so that was kind of the excitement for me, because I wasn't, I've never really been that into like watching TV or nothing like that. My girlfriend likes, her crime dramas and her 2020 and Dateline and stuff like that. For me, this was like that, but real life, like I'm involved. And so that made it kind of worthwhile. So I had written, I'd worked with Jamie Redman at Bitcoin.com. This is before the BCH fork, and had put together a research paper that really was about 15 pages long. And Jamie had, submitted some questions to me, which I kind of rewrote and kind of formatted to fit all the massive amount of, data and information that about how this thing started, who was involved, how it had grown. And, I'm resourcing this from others who were doing, similar things to myself, as myself, and putting it all together and packaging it, and then publish it on Bitcoin.com using 125 different original sources that I'd hyperlinked to basically prove what I was saying. Because one thing with people whom are indoctrinated or get into one of these types of systems, they do not want to believe that they got ripped off, right? That's like, there's something in your brain that it's like, if I put $1,000 into this thing, it's real. There's no option that it's not real. You're just jealous, so
yeah, they're vested in every single way.
Yeah. And during this whole time, I'm learning for the first time about how Ponzi schemes work and how network marketing works, and what a closed circuit a lot of these companies and scammers are, that they just jump from one scam to the next. And some of them had 5, 10 collapsed business quote unquote opportunities behind them, and how anyone could possibly follow these people is just I'm befuddled, right? And so anything that I claimed, and this has been kind of the protocol for 90% of us or more who are fighting these types of scams, is we source it. We post some sort of reliable source. We post either, we quote the scammers that are promoting this thing's own words. We show a video of it. In the past 2 years, I've started making just memes, because the words themselves don't sink in. So while I'm rattling all these cages, while I'm pissing off some of these guys because their downline is beginning, the downline is the people that they recruited that look up to them as leaders whom they're making money from, and et cetera, they're starting to get pissed off at me, right? And after that article came out at the end of June in 2016, I started getting some death threats, and some of those were, I thought, credible. There was 2 at least that I thought were credible, and and this guy named Bobby Sagar, who was a kind of a motivational speaker guy that, you know, into the network marketing thing. He had said, "Hey, I can get you I heard you were trying to interview Ruja. I can maybe get something set up." And he ends up telling me that, hey, he's all, "I can get this all done. I just need your I just need the name of your employer and your address and stuff." I'm like, really? I'm all, "Why don't I just put the bullet in the gun and pass it to you?" And so he tells me over Facebook, actually, this is a good story. You'll appreciate this. He tells me over Facebook, he's all, "You don't need to go to Bulgaria to be disappeared." And so at that point, I took that as a threat, because I knew that he did know people kind of high up in the organization. And so I contacted some of my friends that are with Anonymous, right? And when I say Anonymous, I mean, I don't know who they are. I just knew what they were and what they represented. And essentially, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but this guy that threatened me ended up getting doxxed, and it wasn't published online, but I told him everything that I knew. He goes, he told, one of the last things he told me, he's all, "I'll be watching you." I'm all. So it was 2 days later, I wrote him back and I said, "You mean you'll be watching me? Like, that I took my 1968 Jaguar into the shop and spent $243 on my Visa card? You mean that you'll be watching me? Like you'll know that I just got my Samsung Galaxy 8 or whatever it was 2 months ago? You mean you'll be watching me? Like, that I flew out of Palm Beach, such and such airport with Cessna with the tail fin number, blah, 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 into Mexico City on this date, returning such and such date." And there was a BDSM, sex thing that he had apparently been involved in with like some wicked shit, right? And so he blocked me and I never heard from him again. But that was kind of fun. So fast forward to Jen McAdams. Sorry. So Jen was just another promoter who was, had a kind of a badge called Ruby, right? So once you graduated, once you had brought in so much money from the company, you would achieve different levels or statuses. And she had achieved a double Ruby status. So there's like, I think Ruby, or maybe it's Emerald and then Ruby, or Ruby then Emerald, and then Diamond, then Blue Diamond, then Black Diamond, and the very, very top is like Crown Diamond, right? So these are this hierarchical stuff, right? And so she was like a Ruby, which means that she had brought in, like $250,000, euros into OneCoin. So I just saw that as theft. And so I confronted her about it. And so on Facebook, I would be like, this is why are you stealing from people? Why are you tricking them? Why are here's why OneCoin's a scam. Do you hear what they said last week about this? Well, that's proven wrong. Do you hear about this? This Eastern European summit, that was all paid for. That was paid for by the victims. What about when she said this? Doesn't this contradict this, etc.? And I mean, there's a lot of different stuff. Like there's dozens and dozens and dozens of documentable lies that this company was telling people in order to get them to sign up. And so she's pissed. She blocks me. I get a hold of her through, I think, probably LinkedIn, because I did use LinkedIn to get a hold of some of these guys. And she agrees to a Facebook video meetup thing, whatever. And so we have this meetup, and I'm just naming off, and I'm telling, and I'm sourcing, and I'm saying, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be suicides because of this. This is a massive scam. There's no blockchain, blah, blah, blah. And she just literally did not believe what I was saying. She thought that I was a bad person that didn't like to see other people successful, and I was trying to destroy, her dreams and OneCoin's dreams because I was a Bitcoiner.
And did you know at this particular time that she's recording this or documenting it?
No, not at all.
And thank goodness she does, because it turns out that this becomes, prima facie evidence for the documentary series. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, and during that recording was like 20 minutes long or something like that. So there was a lot of back and forth, and on the BBC podcast, you just hear me, cursing. It'd be like, it's a fucking scam,
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to understand that this is after trying to employ reason and logic and things like
Sure.
this, and just getting stonewalled, right? And so I'm like, you know what? There's no other conclusion to this than you're a scammer yourself, and you're stealing from people, and you don't give a shit, And I mean, how do you not believe otherwise? I mean, when these people dodge every question, they waffle from every debate, from every point. They just change story. They just change the story, and it's this indoctrination that just kind of takes over. And I described it in the Missing Cryptoqueen podcast as a kind of igloo being built around this person, right? And an igloo, like the first block of that igloo is, OneCoin is, a double PhD. There's one block. And then, she's graduated from, Constance and university, and she's a partner was a partner at McKinsey and has worked with all these banks, and you're the block. And then it's like head high. And, she has a 200 plus IQ. And these are the kind of things that they're saying. They're literally telling people that she has a 200 plus IQ. And so there's just all these things, right? And these people just believe in this woman. And so at some point, there's nothing that can get past those barriers. It doesn't. And that's what's so remarkable about her having recorded that and being able to look back. And, that was in December of 2016. And in March of 2017, yeah, that's right. In March of 2017, she got back in touch with me and said, "Hey, Tim, I have my buddy Wes on the phone, and, he's been kind of looking into this, and I've read some of the things that you're telling me, and I don't want to believe this, but, some of what you're saying, I can't prove otherwise. And so I have a lot of questions." So anyways, we talked for, I don't know, a while, and she's asking these questions. And at this point, this is like, it's so exciting because it's just such an obnoxious scam and so just out there. And they're just, the ridiculousness of it really is what made it like, it's like a good book. You can't put it down. This is a train that's flying off the tracks, and you cannot take your eyes away. Right. And so that's what really caused me to be an expert on the OneCoin scam and know everything about it, almost everyone involved in it, where they came from, what their history was, all this stuff, right? Just crazy.
Well, your obsession is such a healthy thing in the sense that it turns her around. But the more I think about her predicament, and I'll ask listeners to definitely tune into the Missing Cryptoqueen podcast, because it dramatizes this event even more than we're doing now. But she makes a turnaround, and she become, I think this is probably the hardest thing, especially when you have money invested, time, your personal reputation, online, you've sort of, linked yourself to it. And, she's at least open enough to listen to what you're saying. And, good for her to finally come around to it and admit it. There's actually more in subsequent episodes of the Missing Cryptoqueen that I don't want to give away, but she has a I guess
she's an amazing woman. She's like superwoman. I can't, her and I have become close friends, and there's a few of us that have kind of collaborated on spreading the truth about this. And it's just remarkable that she is the only person in OneCoin that I know of that had some sort of a leadership position, who straight up called a webinar with her team and is like, "Look, guys, I brought you into this. You guys gave money. I'm responsible for having you put in your money to some extent, and I'm finding out things that I cannot hold back from you. And so she put a webinar together, and maybe even one of the points that may have made her recontact me is that around January, February of 2017, this guy Bjorn Bjerke, who was a blockchain professional and expert, if you will, who later worked in with blockchain for like Ernst & Young and things like this. He had been contacted back in October of 2016, which was October 1st of 2016 was that launching of the quote unquote new blockchain, right? And that was really a spectacular. This is, by the way, when I learned that I was kind of famous, because at least in that community, it was really weird, because this new blockchain event was happening, I think, in Bangkok, and it was at like midnight my time, maybe 4 o'clock or whatever it was, in Bangkok time. But this is going to be the unveiling of this thing, right? There's so many people and so many that all over the world who were, contributing to the story and to the unfolding of, what was going on. There's a bulletin board in Sweden, or it's in Finland, called Muro BBS. It's MURO BBS, and there was a massive thread there because OneCoin really kind of started in Finland and Sweden. That's where the first major victims, were recruited through some of the leadership that came from the same area. So these were people that were watching their neighbors having put money into this thing and all this. Well, someone had figured out that in the back office of the OneCoin, in the OneCoin back office where you log in and all that sort of stuff, we had people that gave us all their login details and stuff like that, so we can mess around back there and surf around and see what was kind of going on under the hood, which you would otherwise have needed to pay an exorbitant fee to see. But we would mess around back there, and someone on Muro BBS had found that this thing that was being called a blockchain, which looked kind of like it was a digital counter, and it would blink every once in a while, and a new block would be formed. And this thing was a looping Shutterstock video that the company had bought for like 78 euros.
Wow.
And what they were saying was the blockchain was a freaking looping Shutterstock video. And so anyhow, armed with this information and anticipatory to see whether they actually launch a real blockchain on October 1st of 2016, which I thought they would do. Like, why wouldn't you? Just ditch the old fake, facade, start a new cryptocurrency that's a blockchain-based cryptocurrency that you stole the open source or use the open source script for whatever and start a crypto. So for sure, I thought that was their way out, right? I thought, well, it's gonna happen. They're gonna just have to do that, but they didn't. And so on stage, Ruja's saying, okay, we're about to, mine these blocks. And all of a sudden, this looping Shutterstock video is on. I'm all, holy shit, they're still using the same looping video. This is on stage. This is in front of 8,000 people in Bangkok live. And she's like, okay, it's almost here. And then the blockchain starts blinking before the, before the block is solved. It starts blinking before the block is solved. Okay. And so I'm watching this live, in Bangkok, and I'm commenting, I'm like, oh my God, my fingers are slamming the keyboard. I'm all, this is a looping video. And, by this time I've figured out, I can grab this thing from here. I can grab this image from there. I can grab this link from here. I can grab, stuff all about the bank closures, the, seizing errata, all this, and looping blockchain. And I'm posting this in there, and I'm like, and all of a sudden, there's like 1,000 or a couple thousand people in this. So someone block it. It's Temptation. He's in here. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, what have I done?
Wow.
it was so funny. Like everyone's calling me Temptation, get him out of here. He's a hater, and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy shit. And it was just crazy, man. And so a couple days after that, apparently Bjorn Bjerke had been contacted through an agency called Essentia to actually build them a blockchain. This is several days after this, blinking video in which 1.9865 thousand, 100,000 OneCoins from the original blockchain were transferred over to the new blockchain, and then it starts mining, by the way, 50,000 coins a minute. And so the idiots that are promoting this scam that know nothing about cryptocurrency, they're like, oh, we're now officially bigger than Bitcoin. We are doing 50,000 coins a minute. Bitcoin, they think this is a good thing. And I'm like, oh my God. It was just amazing. So I think that around January, February, revelation of Bjorn Bjerke had come out, and I think that Jen had gotten wind of that, and so now she's starting to put things together from additional sources, and I think that is what really finally led to us, talking, and then me introducing her to Bjorn and some others, and her figuring out. And within about 3 to 4 weeks after that March episode, she had already begun, we'd done a webinar with her team and stuff like that. And people on the team hated us, thought we were haters and scammers and all this stuff. But she started a victim support group, and very quickly people started coming into that group. And over the course of the next 2.5, 3 years, we've now got one in every continent, and this is just where people that are that invested come for information, and any new news about the trials or about OneCoin or about arrests around the world are posted in there. And so people can keep abreast of the situation. And when people would go in there, there was no expectation that they had to, believe anything, that they had gotten scammed or not. It was just, look, healthy debate is good. Come in here, feel free to debate, feel free to ask questions. We'll provide sources for all of our answers. The only thing we request is that you have a logical debate. And that's, Jen moderated that, and it really has helped a lot of people out.
Unbelievable. We could literally talk about this for hours and hours and hours. It is such a compelling, it has so much that is relevant to cryptocurrency, as you've only really taken us to the actual boom point of crypto as we know it. 2017, especially the latter part, becomes absolute mania, and Dr. Ruja disappears, and that's kind of where the Missing Cryptoqueen podcast kind of gets its reason to go on, and there's so much more to this. And what I think a lot of people can take from why we've spent so much time examining it, and why people like you are so very important to the space, is that this goes to the integrity of the idea. So as much as we need, developers and engineers and innovators and people who market and venture capitalists, we also need a dedicated group of skeptics who are unafraid to go out there and document the stuff, because then you can kind of use it as a, I don't know if it almost has nothing to do with OneCoin anymore. It's kind of fitting this pattern, this psychological pattern, the get rich quick scheme, the masturbatory vocabulary levels, the Scientology like education courses, all of that. It informs us for the next scam, and it's the reason why I find your work so incredibly valuable, and why I was super happy to. When I was talking to Jamie, I was like, wait a second, Temptation? And he and I started going back and forth, and I was like, that's got to be the dude I interviewed back at Comic-Con. And I was like, is he involved with Bitcoin and stuff like that? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's him. I said, oh my God, yeah, that would be the guy. So anyway, that was a long way to go to thank you again for all of your time. I told you I'd keep you for half an hour, and I've kept you way over that. But how can
I'd like to kind of say something in closing.
Go.
You know, I was in 2016, I was posting a lot of this on like Reddit and stuff like that. And I actually got kicked out of Reddit because of it, because the crypto community didn't really want to hear this stuff. You know, it's like, well, yeah, it's obviously a scam, but part of this, you know, campaign is there's been talk about how we need to, you know, self-regulate and stuff like that. But talk is cheap. And, you know, if we're going to self-regulate, we really have to do it. And, you know, I mentioned earlier that one of the things that, I mean, you know, and I attacked BitConnect and I attacked a bunch of other scam coins, but nothing, you know, this one coin I dedicated much more of my time to because of the significance in just how much money was being stolen. OneCoin stole more money than EOS raised. I mean, think about that a minute, you know?
Yeah.
And so we really need to be proactive against this, because this is, you know, this is the proverbial bad apple that destroys the bunch. And there's a lot of them. And with the advent of cryptocurrency and the combination of multi-level marketing, that's just a poisonous combination. It's just super poisonous. So I began, like I said, about 2 years ago, just started making memes, and these memes would have real messages and real facts, and would document and you know, how ridiculous much of this was. And the whole point in this thing is we have to name and shame. And in retrospect, if people are going to name and shame, I definitely commend that. They should definitely do that. But watch your asses, because these companies, they'll sue. They know that they're not going to win these cases, but they'll sue just to make your life uncomfortable and to cost you money. And they'll threaten and they'll, you know, do all kinds of crazy stuff, because when you start taking money out of the hands of scammers, they don't like that. And it's just something that we have to do. So just be real careful, learn what you know, defamation, libel, slander, and stuff like that is, and choose your words carefully, but call them out. And if you can do so, do it anonymously, unless you have a good attorney, or unless, you know, I don't know, you just it's something that has to be done, but it's also, you're dealing with criminals, you're dealing with criminal organizations. So just be careful.
Wise, very wise words. And so where can people follow you, follow your work, follow the story, if they want to sort of keep an eye on Tayshun and things OneCoin and how it develops in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So Twitter is probably the best play. You can find me on Facebook at Tayshun, TIMTAYSHUN. So it's phonetic. That's been my handle for over 20 years. Kind of was a DJ name. So Tayshun. And on Twitter, you can find me at Tayshun or at Easy Coin Access. That's the letter E, the letter Z as in Zeta, Coin Access. So at Easy Coin Access is my Twitter. Those are probably the best ways to find me.
Very cool, Tim. Well, again, all the time, the detail. This is you're really doing, I've said it before, heroic work, and you've at least impacted one life that I know of, in Jen McAdam, and so she carries that forward. And like you say, it's part of the self-regulatory idea. And that is part and parcel to the responsibility of an open source community and freer people. So thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for your work, and I am rooting for you, dude.
Thanks, man. I got to give a shout out to Jamie and Georgia, because as anyone that has been fighting this and other scams know, that you'll kind of once in a while you'll get a little bit of publicity, or you'll see a little bit of police action or something like that. But, you know, Jamie and Georgia really embraced and understood what the message that we were trying to bring out, and the complexity of what this story was really about, and they've just done an absolutely amazing job at presenting this with the level of drama and tension and conspiracy and everything that goes that into this, and I think it's really raised a lot of awareness, and I think that hopefully we're seeing OneCoin on its last leg, and the criminals are going to be punished and imprisoned for what they stole and held accountable. I mean, I believe that justice is coming, and that's why I started this mission too. So I just want to see that carried out.
Boom, there it is. Jamie Bartlett's The Missing Cryptoqueen on BBC Sounds. It's ongoing right now. Give it a listen. Thanks again, Tim.
All right, man. Thank you.